Hello, everybody. This is Todd Lindley. I'm going to be standing in as your host of the Must Read Alaska show. First, I wanted to start off by saying thank you. You are the reason that I'm here today hosting this show and the reason that we are able to continue bringing you the news that matters to Alaskans. Over the last few months, we've had a lot of change here at Must Read Alaska with still more to come, but we wanted to assure you that we are not going anywhere and that we have great things in store for you in 2026. So thank you for being a subscriber and thank you for choosing us as your trusted news source here in the last frontier. Right now, Must Read Alaska is running a special where you can get an additional 10% off the monthly In for News and All In subscriptions. We will deliver the legislative highlights directly to your inbox for all our coverage of the legislative session. The deal will run through May 20th. Just enter the promo code AKLEG26, that's AKLEG26 at checkout and get 10% off your monthly subscription. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this podcast so you know when we have new episodes coming out. Leave us a comment and share this with someone you know. Lastly, don't forget to go to the website and sign up for our free newsletter. On the top of the page or under your account, enter your email to sign up for your free newsletter. It goes out every Monday, includes a recap of the top stories, you can take polls, or you can see what's happening around the state and more. All this is delivered straight to your inbox. You can also find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and soon to be YouTube, where you can see other great content put out by our team. Today, we are going to have a conversation about the upcoming Anchorage Assembly race, and we will have one of the candidates on to share why he's running and what you need to know about his campaign and what's in store for the future of Anchorage. All right, good afternoon. I have got an assembly candidate for Anchorage, Alaska that we're having a conversation with here today. So we'll go ahead and we'll just open it up and say, who are you? Where are you from? What's your district? And who is your opponent?
Thanks for having me, Todd. My name is Brian Flynn. I'm running for District 3 West Anchorage. This district runs from basically West High School all the way down Minnesota Boulevard. It loops around Diamond over to Arctic and C Street and down to Klatt. So Turnagain, Spenard, Sand Lake, Jewel Lake, Bayshore, Klatt, and West Park are the big areas of this district.
Oh, that's fantastic. Those are some of my old stomping grounds down there. My wife and I used to live down in the Southport area, so we
Oh,
missed you
that's
just
where
by
I
a
live.
couple of years.
I live in the Southport area, so we're probably pretty close together.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Brian, this is great. And first, thank you very much for running these roles, whether it's the assembly, whether it's the legislature, the utility boards. We've got so many different opportunities for people to get involved, but to take that step and actually to put yourself out there is a big deal. And so first, thank you for doing that. Is this your first time running for office?
No, I actually ran for this same seat 3 years ago against the same opponent.
Oh, all right. Another head to
It's
head.
it's the rematch.
There you go. So let's kind of start there. So your opponent, if I remember correctly, this is Anna Brawley.
Correct.
Very good. So in the last time, what were some of the issues in that election that most people may have favored or maybe, kind of distinguished you from her? And why should people give you a second chance or a second look this year?
Well, back then we were both new candidates. Neither one of us had run for office before, so there was really not a lot that people could differentiate us from. I came from a more conservative background. She came from a more progressive background. But when you're running the race and they say it's a nonpartisan race, but behind the scenes the difference.
Hmm.
But it's hard when you first run. I talked with people and they would say to me, expect to lose your first race, and it's only because it's just there's a lot of things coming at you, drinking from a fire hose, learning to door knock, learning to call people, learning the issues. Back then we had issues, obviously, with we were coming out of COVID.
Hmm.
We were going through the throes of snow removal. Homelessness was an issue, of course. And so some of the same issues we see today, of course they haven't gotten better. And so
Hmm.
just keeping my ear to the ground, keeping engaged, going to assembly meetings, watching what's going on, seeing the transition between the mayor's offices and seeing how, you watch that, how the assembly treated the previous administration and basically just kept, pounding on different issues and wouldn't really let that administration get things done. And now you go to more of a kumbaya where they're in lockstep, and we're seeing a lot of things that are not being really disseminated, and the public is starting to see that. And I see that with the people I talk to and the doors I knock at. They're upset, but they're getting engaged, and I think that's a great thing. 3 years ago, people weren't as engaged. I'm going to different areas of the city that 3 years ago people didn't really want to talk about the issues. Now they'll talk to me for 5 minutes or so, just about everything, that every gripe they have, and it's a common thread. They're upset. They're ready for change, and I think we have a real opportunity to pick up some seats and get some more balance in that assembly.
I think so too. And I would share the same sentiment in terms of, I think of the last few years, there's been, whether it's the COVID pandemic, which was a significant global worldwide thing that hit, or we have localized issues. So, the snow removal is one where we had seen over the last few years some pretty intense, heavy snow. And for those of us that enjoy being outside and playing in it, it
Mm-hmm.
just slows you down getting in and out of your driveway every morning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that's kind of an easy one to start here. Easy, I say, right? I think it's probably the most visible one. But what are you hearing from people in your neighborhood and in your district when it comes to the snow clearing? Because what we read in the newspapers and see on the news is something that, hey, the snow is actually being cleared away. Essential services have no obstructions. But is there more to this story that you might want people to know of?
Well, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I don't think it's really wise for any politician to politicize snow removal, because you're never going to win. Last year we had very little snow, record low snow, and this year we went back to a bit more normal, a little above normal. We get
Hmm.
reports from the administration that snow removal is better, that everything's great. But I tell you, I've gone to all corners of this district, and in all areas, the snow removal on the main roads may be okay, but the back roads, the side roads, I live in a cul-de-sac. Many of the cul-de-sacs still have, 15-foot, 20-foot piles of snow, and all the
Hmm.
storm drains are blocked. And people have to sort of maneuver through their streets and into driveways just to get down to their houses. And they're upset about it
Hmm.
because nobody likes to be told one thing when they see what the reality is in their own neighborhoods. And I think that's how I feel. That's what I'm getting from people in the district, people who are engaged with me on social media. They know what's going on. They're not stupid. But I think that sometimes they feel like they're getting played and being dished something a little bit different than they know is the right thing.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I think it really it may seem like a small thing, right? Snow removal. It's Alaska. We all got to deal with it, right? But when it comes to housing, affordability, the quality of life, like it maintains a significant portion of the year for Alaskans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we're looking at the future, that's one thing that I think people have to assess when they're looking to move up to Alaska is, do I want to buy that nice fancy new snowblower and all these things, or contract that service out, or even essential service that the city would provide? But from a future perspective, I think it's definitely something that is always going to be there, kind of like what you're saying, and the efficiency and how we approach that is, you know, it's got such bandwidth, right, that it can leave you with the situation that we're in now, or it's something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
But going kind of that future focus, right? Because you're running for an assembly seat. The assembly here in Anchorage is got an enormous incredibility to just influence what's going on. And a few of the areas that I think are be really good because they are top of mind, but they may not necessarily be directly related in some ways. But this concept of the property assessments, the homeless issue, the crime, like these are all things I think that also weigh into not just the essential services here, uh, like snow removal and seeing things like that, but um, a question here. So just kind of going big picture for a second. In
But
true business fashion, give us your elevator pitch of why moving to Anchorage is a great idea.
well, if you're looking for an easy, predictable, and average Anchorage, this isn't your place. You'll need a good winter jacket, but it's actually a great one. But here's a trade-off. Summers here are barely sets. You're mowing the lawn at 9 p.m. and those hills that people talk about and actual mountains in your backyard. If you want a venture opportunity and the chance to be a part of something being rebuilt in real time, the city will hook you. Anchorage is it's full of people and build things, fix things, and create opportunities where others see challenges. We're embracing what makes us different while building something more stronger, smarter, and more exciting for the future. We're not trying to be like anywhere else. If you want a life with a little bigger, a little bolder, a lot more meaningful, Anchorage is ready for you. And I just end that by saying, we know where we need to go. We just need to get there. We need the right people to steer us in that direction.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's a good description of that. And I kind of want to drive down into a little bit, and we'll go into this property assessments component. It's it's certainly something that got a lot of attention this year. I know there were several news articles that had come out about uh, disparities in assessments. And, if I remember correctly, even in the legislature, there was recently a report on needing additional assessors to be able to handle all of the assessments that came in, right? And
Mhm.
so when it comes to the property assessments, a lot of this is kind of directly related to kind of how the taxes are. And so there's a question here that might be a good one. So, what specific tax strategies would you support to diversify the municipality's revenue sources while keeping Anchorage competitive for businesses and affordable for residents?
Well, it's going to take a lot of balance. The homeowners and the businesses are carrying too much of the load, and that's just not sustainable. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
open to revenue diversification, but it has to, including a potential sales tax, but it's only if it's done the right way and for the right reason. If a sales
Mm-hmm.
tax is part of the solution, it should be structured and act in a way that actually reduces the burden on property owners. And it needs to be ironclad and in charter. I can't tell you how many times you see a tax pass and they move it around as soon as it gets into the hands of the wrong people in the assembly.
Mm-hmm.
But before we even go there, the municipality needs to do the hard work. That means a true forensic review of the spending, evaluating which programs are delivering results, and cutting what is not, improving or managing existing dollars in a disciplined, business-minded, private sector way. The government should operate the same accountability we expect from that private sector. I mean, I work in that private sector. If I was doing the things that they did and mismanaging my budget, I would be fired. And I think that that's where people they see that whether it's private sector or in their personal lives, you just can't continue spending when you don't have money coming in. My opponent seems to think that the thought of even looking the way I look at things is would be detrimental to getting rid of services in the city, and that's not what I'm talking about because she doesn't live in the private sector; she lives in the public sector. What I am
Mm-hmm.
saying is that we need to look, and we have to look at things with a broader scope in a more macro way, and not take the lazy way out of it. And my
Mm-hmm.
priority is to grow the revenue by growing Anchorage. That means streamlining permitting, reducing barriers in investment, supporting redevelopment, and partnering with schools, local businesses, and the university to build real workforce pipelines. It also means bringing
Mm-hmm.
in outside dollars from tourism, the film production. Because I've talked with the film production people in this area, and they're so talented, and we just need to give them incentives, tax incentives, to get these companies up here. I've seen so many
Mm-hmm.
movies, and my wife makes fun of me because when a movie is set in Alaska but not filmed in Alaska or in Anchorage for that matter, I mean, I think that's disingenuous. I mean, we need to be positioning Anchorage as a place where people want to live, work, and invest. And we should
Mm-hmm.
also be far more aggressive about the non-tax revenue, including better use of municipal assets and a stronger public-private partnerships, whether that's in land development, business development, looking at what we can do to incentivize instead of push away businesses and investment and growth. And
Mm-hmm.
if the sales tax were ever implemented, it needs to have clear guardrails. It should be transparent and accountable and structured in a way that protects affordability and keeps Anchorage competitive. Most importantly, it should come with clear commitment that property tax pressure goes down and not up like we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. So, over the time that you've gone to some of these assembly meetings and been participating, are there specific examples that you might be able to share with people of where you've seen maybe this lack of will to go in and either cut budgets or maybe look the other way on a particular revenue generating opportunity?
Well, when you watch the budget operation, it's pretty clear where they're going. I mean, the tax cap is a ceiling. It's not a target, but the Assembly majority has operated as a ceiling for the better part of the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some members, some good members on the Assembly try to propose some cuts, even some little cuts. When it comes down to proposing those, they put it before the Assembly and they cut it. They refuse to make the cuts and they reallocate money into different areas. This year, for example, the mayor proposed a $666 million budget. And after they were all said and done going through the assembly, after all the cuts that were proposed by member Gerker and member Myers and member McCormick, they ended up
Mm-hmm.
cutting just around $100,000 from the mayor's budget. That's
Mm.
it. That's absolutely ridiculous. And on top of it, I mean, there seems to be a sense of entitlement that people continue to talk about. And I know it's a small thing, but it's a meaningful one. If you're telling people we're going to a fiscal cliff, and
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, a couple of members proposed, you know what? Why don't we cut $30,000 out of the budget and stop getting free meals for the assembly members?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, we can bring our own lunch. We make enough, from the salary we make from this. We don't need to have free meals at the taxpayer expense. It's a symbolic thing, that you're going to put a little skin in the game. Like, hey, you know what? I know times are tough. I'm not going to take that free dinner. And the assembly majority refused that, and they're continuing to get free meals on the public dollar. I mean, police don't get free meals, fire don't get free meals. None of the municipal workers get free meals. Why do these people feel like they have the entitlement to have that luxury on top of a $70,000 travel budget? Where are they
Mm-hmm.
going? I mean, it's when you're telling people one thing and you're doing another. I think people are seeing it with their own eyes. I see it with the people I talk to and listen to, I think it's high time that maybe, just maybe, that assembly majority should start getting out of their echo chamber and starting to listen to some of the people I'm talking to.
Yeah. I just the other night I had seen a chart that stated that the Anchorage inflation was somewhere near about 19%. And
Sounds about
that's
right.
a hard pill to swallow on some of these things like you're talking about, which, in the private sector would be considered non-discretionary, right?
Hmm.
And or discretionary, depending on which way you look at it. And so, affordability is just one of these things where, as you mentioned, right, skin in the game. What are we going to do to make Anchorage continue to be affordable, not just for today, but for that future that you described for us here in the beginning?
Hmm.
Now, affordability certainly is great. We got to have people to be able to afford living in the houses, buying in the houses, buying groceries, doing all those things, right? But I think one of the areas that kind of erodes us in a really indirect way is this issue of homelessness.
Hmm.
We've had the report earlier, maybe it was about a month ago or earlier this month, where Assemblymember Constant had said all the major camps are gone. I can't say that there hasn't been a concerted effort to address some of these areas. Maybe it hasn't been addressed in time as timely as most people would like, but homelessness is just one of those when you're looking at the affordability and the future Anchorage, like how does this fit into our plan and what specific ways do you either need we need to identify this problem if it hasn't been identified correctly, and then what would you do about it?
Well, first of all, I'll address that op-ed that was done. I would think it was disingenuous to tell people that we haven't abated any camps this year when you're running that report in February. I mean, if you want to impress me, run that report in August, and if it's the same, then maybe we'll talk about reality. I mean, it's just this is what we get. We get fed information through pipelines of people just wanting us to believe what we're told instead of what we see. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
people know the difference. I still talk to people who still remember the way it was last summer. And let's be frank. I mean, on April 1st, they're going to start releasing 150 homeless people from the shelters. And those people are going to be right back out on the street. We're going to have the same issues. We have to like just face the reality of that and stop
Mm-hmm.
this whole pattern of just this recycling of issues. It's like put them inside for the winter, put them back out on the street for the summer, listen to complaints, act like we're getting tough, and then put them back in the warming shelters and say the problem is solved. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's time to let the adults get back in the room and start to work on real
Mm-hmm.
solutions. I think that what we first and foremost need to look at is a centralized location. We need to
Mm-hmm.
get people, instead of spreading them all out, I've talked with numerous people in the industry. I've gone to some of the shelters, both public and private. And, the thing that kind of hits me is that the private side, the ones that are not receiving public dollars, are being effective. They're effectively taking people, moving them out of their issue, like whether it's substance abuse, alcohol abuse, domestic violence, and they're getting them out of those situations and putting them into real and tangible production into society, working. I mean, I went to one where they worked themselves from the street through the process and worked into the front office of that shelter. That's the model
Hmm.
we need to be looking at. So when we talk about all hands on deck, yes, it's public and private, but the public needs to stop dismissing the private side like they do right now and start to
Hmm.
look at, okay, what's working for them? Why are they able to do it cheaper? Why are they getting results and we're not? And so, this is the thing that we don't do on the public side, or the current administration and assembly doesn't do. So if we have a centralized location, we start to assess the issue that person has, and then we start to effectively get them to the resources that they need. This is being done in other cities our size, and it's
Hmm.
being done in a way that's meaningful. I talked with a man the other day who just told me about Jacksonville, Florida, and it sounded so much like Anchorage. He said he had gone to the downtown area of Jacksonville, and there were no homeless down there. So he asked the police officer, and he said, "What is the story here?" And he said, "Well." He said, "I can't help but notice you don't have any homeless down here." He said, "Well, we did. We had a lot of homeless issues down here. Businesses were closing and leaving. They were packing up. Office buildings were closing, and it was really downtrodden. And our city council and our mayor decided to get tough on the issue. They started to enforce the laws that we had, and voila, by some miracle, Jacksonville has a thriving downtown, is a thriving city, and is back on track the way I believe Anchorage can be if we get the right people in office and get the right ideas moving again. And we're just not seeing that. The solution we have right now is just we need more money. And then when they're out of money, we need more revenue streams to bring in. And then when we talk about, like, people like myself or some of the other candidates talk about doing an audit that literally looks at, and I'm not talking about the audit that they're going to be coming out with, that they say, well, we
Sure.
did our audit and everything's great. That's not what I'm talking about. I want somebody to come in with clean eyes, who's not connected with any of us, and neither me nor the people right now in charge, who literally says, why are you doing it this way? Why aren't you doing it that way? You're spending too much over here and you're not getting a return on your investment. Why do you continue giving money to these NGOs that are not giving you any reports of results? I mean, that's, to me, in any
Hmm.
business, if you're gonna operate that way, you're gonna fail, and we're seeing that failure in homelessness.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have a independent third party to do some of this, especially with the money, the scale of money that we're dealing with. I mean, the other thing that would probably not go well is if you had a Nick Shirley type that shows up and starts knocking on the doors and finding Somali daycares or any of the other number of things. I mean, I'm not sure if there's any of that going on up here, but it would be much better, much more effective coming through kind of a channel like you're saying, where we can comprehensively see some of this stuff and solve a problem, in a productive manner like that. The centralized shelter you talked about, like I've been in part of discussions where people have talked about that, and I mean it comes with some risk, but like you're saying, if the adults in the room are trying to really assess this risk and understand what the problem is, I think you've got to be able to look at it clear eyed.
Well, I mean, the centralized location wouldn't be a shelter. It would be a
Yep.
triage. It's
Right.
getting, we have plenty of shelters that we can work with. It's that right now I did a ride along with APD, and when they pick somebody up, they're the ones that have to call all these places, whether it's a hotel, a private, a public, and find out if there's room. Well, what if that location is not the best suited place for that particular individual's needs? Why are we
Hmm.
just dumping our people off? I've talked with the Hope Center downtown, and people get dumped off in front of their building, and then they're
Hmm.
faced with trying to help that person, which of course they do.
Yeah.
And then of course, if we disperse all these big parks, and some of the people go into shelter, and some of the people push themselves out because they just don't want to be in society, and they go out into the woods. I'm really
Hmm.
scared for what happened this winter. We had bitter cold for weeks on end, and we
Hmm.
could be finding some issues out in the woods. I talked with some of the people who knew, when they knew where the locations of these people were, they could give them clothing, they could give them warmth and food, and at least they were provided for. And we did not
Mm-hmm.
have that this winter because when they broke up Davis, when they broke up some of these larger camps, they didn't
Mm-hmm.
they didn't move those people into sheltered environments or areas where they could be watched. And of course, we're just managing the number. We're not trying to decrease the number. We're hovering somewhere around 2,800 to 3,000 or more homeless people, and then they pat themselves on the back if it goes down for 1 month, and then
Yep.
that's not fair to the taxpayer. It's not fair to the people. That's not compassion.
Right.
That's just using them as a political football to get more money out of the pockets of taxpayers. Because I mean, just like my opponent has never seen a dollar in your pocket. She can't spend better than you can.
Mm. Man. Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the compassion, right? Is these are people, they're humans, they're created in the image and likeness of God, and to be able to
Mm-hmm.
pass along like this, I mean, we have to have a human problem or a human solution to a human problem. So I mean, that's great. This next segment is sponsored by 7 Weeks Coffee. Good coffee is something we can all enjoy, and even better when the coffee you buy goes to a good cause. The name comes from the size of the developing baby at 7 weeks, the size of a coffee bean, and the first time a heartbeat is clearly detectable. Their mission is to fund the pro-life movement one cup of coffee at a time. They provide you with the world's best specialty coffee. To give you an idea of this, it's mold and glyphosate free, comes from organic and regenerative farming practices. Not only is it good coffee, but they donate 10% of every sale to pro-life pregnancy center care centers across the nation, which amounts to over 50% of their profits. Together with Must Read Alaska and 7 Weeks Coffee, you can make a real difference, one cup at a time. So go to their website, 7 Weeks Coffee, that's SEVEN weekscoffee.com, and use the promo code MRAK for 10% off your purchase. The link will be included in the show notes. You know, I think one of the other things that we see along the lines of the homelessness, and whether it's a byproduct or whether it's something that is, a companion to it, but it's this crime. And earlier in the year, when Governor Dunleavy gave his State of the State address, he specifically mentioned that the state of Alaska was going to partner with Anchorage to address crime and have it in kind of a phased approach. And it was, I think you could really honestly say like it was an honest look at what's going on. And it may not have been directly related to homelessness. Maybe there was a component of that, but crime in general is something that when we're projecting ourselves and trying to put, what does future Anchorage look like if we're unhappy with the state of this today, crime has to be a part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So from coming from your perspective on what crime looks like here in Anchorage, where the major either issues may be, whether it's the actual crime, the way that we address it, the function of ASD, or excuse me, not ASD, APD.
Mm-hmm.
What does this issue look like, and what are some of those steps that you're looking to implement if you were to become on the assembly?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's incumbent upon the assembly to hold the administration and the police chief to account to what's being done. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
pass ordinances with the intention that if you're going to pass ordinances, they need to be enforced, and
Mm-hmm.
they aren't being enforced. And so what that's the first thing you need to look at is when you're in an assembly meeting, it's not kumbaya, it's not hostile, but it's like let's get some real numbers and feedback as to, okay, we passed all these ordinances, the camping ordinance, the indecency ordinances,
Mm-hmm.
all these things they said they needed. They filled up all the prosecution offices. So then why? I guess I'd have to ask. Then why are we still dismissing cases? Why are we still pleading cases
Hmm.
down? Why are we still, why are we telling citizens that if they get assaulted, they have to file a citizen's arrest? Why is it
Hmm.
that when a business owner has a troublesome person on their property, they're told to trespass that person instead of, the chief or, some of his administrative people, enforcing these laws and making people feel like it's being done. I mean, I talked with hotel owners, I've talked with business owners, I've talked with building owners. I'm in the commercial real estate realm, and I talk with us as building owners. What we deal with and the amount of money we have to spend in our budgets just cleaning up after the crime and
Mm-hmm.
issues that we see, only to be told that, oh, we can't, we're not going to enforce that. I did a ride along with APD, and we did in that ride along. The first encounter was an arrest of a man who beat up his girlfriend at Walmart, and we took him down to the jail. As he's being processed and being brought into the back, he turned around, looked at the police officer, and said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And how do you think the morale is on these officers? They want to do their
Huh.
jobs. The officer I was with certainly wants to do his job. All the ones I talked to on that shift, actually, they do. They want to do their jobs. They want to feel like they're making a difference. So
Mm-hmm.
why aren't we letting that happen? So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what we need to ask first and foremost: is why is the mayor's office not, holding the chief to account and saying, why are you not enforcing these laws? Why are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? And here's the other thing: why does the state have to step in? Why is it that they felt a need that they needed to step in and
Good
sort of
point.
prop up the city? Why is it, I think that that's something that needs to be questioned as to, I think I really commend the governor and the attorney general for stepping up and recognizing the issues that we have in Anchorage. I think a lot of people I talk to feel the same way. They feel like now we're finally maybe see some teeth on some of the laws that we say that, oh, well, we get told, well, Anchorage can't enforce these ordinances because they're state laws. So it's always kind of this moving target, right? It's like
Yeah.
there's always some excuse why we can't enforce laws, but that means nothing to the people in my district, like by Minnesota Park, who had to deal with drug dealers and
Mm-hmm.
overdoses in their backyards. It does nothing for the people on Strawberry who had to deal with in a massive homeless camp that, and they called about so frequently, or even in Turnagain between Northern Lights and Benson, calling
Mm-hmm.
frequently about it and nothing being done. People being punched in the face, and because an officer doesn't witness it, they can't go arrest them. So you're going to file a citizen's arrest, so that takes liability off the municipality. That's ridiculous, and it needs to be stopped.
Wow, that just sounds a whole lot of steps that have just moved us further away from letting the police do the job that police need to do, huh?
They're great. I mean, I can't say enough about the officers and the firefighters we have in this city. They just simply want to do their jobs, and they want to do them
Mm-hmm.
well. And we need to support that. And we need to. And when they're not, when they're not able to do that, or they're not being allowed to do that, we need to ask that question of the people above them and their superiors as to why.
Yeah, and I can just think right off the top of my head. I mean, we had a pretty major homeless camp near our place, and the number of times that I had called the fire department out because there had been a fire that had gotten out of
Mm,
control. They're there to do that, but I can also think of the time that now they're away from potentially being able to respond to other things. So, I mean, it's just a compounding issue of
exactly.
getting away from like the true purpose and mission of what our first responders and local law enforcement officers are doing.
Yeah, I
And
mean, with the fire department, a lot, fire and police. I mean, most of their calls are centered around crime and homelessness issues, whether it's
mhm,
starting fires, and just, like you said, I mean, I feel for an issue where you're dealing with a fire that's set in a camp, and a house is on fire, and someone, God forbid, something happens to that person because they weren't able
mhm,
to respond to that one. And with the crime side with APD, you're just going back to, like, there's so much crime, but then they know that, I'm just going to see this guy tomorrow. So what's the use of, why do I arrest this guy? He's just going to be turned loose.
yeah, and it's a really interesting. piece. And I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I think we can look across the country right now and we can see that in various cities around the country, we have these repeat offenders that are caught and processed and released, caught, processed and released. And
Hmm.
ultimately, many of these people end up committing very violent crimes. I mean, the whole Lake and Riley Act, for example,
Hmm.
is an excellent example of an innocent person that was caught in the crossfires of a violent repeat offender. And, these are very important issues when it comes to future Anchorage, affordability, family, quality of life that we have to deal with in a very direct way.
Yes, of course, and I agree with you. Time and time again, I think just in Chicago recently, there was a
There you
girl who
go.
was murdered by a man who had been released by their prosecutor.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had stolen some items from a store. It sounds like something that God forbid, could happen here.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the issue with a woman who was stabbed at Lusac Library, and she's paralyzed for life by a man that was
Yeah.
released because he supposedly was not fit to stand trial. So you
Mm-hmm.
release him back to the street. So God forbid he does it to somebody else. These things, I mean, just those are the things where I just say to myself, make it make sense. I
Yep.
just make it make sense, and it doesn't work for me.
Right. And we haven't even talked about whether or not these people are here as citizens or they're illegals, right? I mean, that's a
Mm,
whole nother category of this crime component that I'm sure we could go into. But I got one more topic that I want to get your thoughts on because it is important. It may not be a direct thing here with the assembly, but the assembly certainly does insert themselves in ways. But energy.
mhm,
Energy in South Central Alaska has been probably a bigger topic in the last few years than at least since I've been here. We've got the South Central, or excuse me, the Cook Inlet gas shortage, depending on what you're hearing and how we see that. We have a potential future gas line. We've got the import terminal. We have all the utilities trying to figure out ways to diversify and create this future where energy is now going to be affordable.
mhm,
Now, the assembly probably most recently is known for their involvement with the Eklutna Dam and
mhm,
very hot topic issue. Eklutna Dam in 2024 provided pretty much saved our bacon, if you will, when
mhm. Yeah.
we had that cold snap and Fire Island's just not fired up to the extent that it needed to. But kind of stepping back into this energy realm in the context of affordability and families and kind of what you're running on. What does energy look like? What are ways that the municipality of Anchorage, specifically the assembly, can help with or uh, maybe steer the direction or influence what energy could be to bring us into an affordable future?
Well, I mean, I think that you touched on the Eklutna Dam. I think trying to break down something that's actually working and something that is actually, like you said, saving our bacon. We shouldn't be looking to do that. We first and foremost need to get our gas issue under wraps and start encouraging the legislature not to screw this up like it seems like they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have shortages. I mean, this winter there was about a week, 2 weeks where people were starting to think we were going to get down into a dangerous situation in the middle of winter when
Mm-hmm.
we are an energy state.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely ridiculous to me. I understand the desire to look at alternative fuel or alternative energy sources,
Mm-hmm.
solar, wind, everything, all of the above. But that's not going to happen overnight. And I'm with solar. I guess I'm naive, but in this state, when we do have sunny summers, but we have dark winters. So your
Mm-hmm.
solar is not a year-round solution. Wind isn't really a solution either. I mean, Fire Island, I believe, is only about what 5% of the grid.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really. I mean, unless we're going to have a bigger area for windmills, but they're environmentally and damaging and also very expensive. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to grasp, get on top of our legislators, push for this gas line, and get down the rail belt and get gas down into Anchorage so that we can not only just to get energy, but to get affordable energy.
Mm-hmm.
We're pricing people out of their homes, especially those vulnerable, the elderly, the handicapped, those people who are on fixed incomes, who and all in the working class, the single mom who has to work 2, 3 jobs, and is faced with a gas bill or an electric bill that they just can't afford, and
Mhm.
they have kids to feed. I mean, these are the things that I think are being overlooked and things that we really need to get our arms around when we're looking at the future for Anchorage and what we're going to do to stabilize our energy concerns.
Especially too, I mean, the hot topic right now is data centers, right?
Yeah.
And data centers, AI, like they're kind of synonymous, and data centers are, I think most of the ones they want to be located in right here in the middle of town, right? And so as an assembly, how are you guys looking at, or what would you need to look at in terms of integrating sources like this that could potentially be revenue generating, energy loads and whatnot, but what would an assembly need to look at for, say, big investment, big projects that are like that?
Well, my initial understanding is, I mean, we have to get our own grid under wraps before we can start looking at expanding a much larger grab at the grid. And,
Mm-hmm.
the expense of it, if it's privately invested in looking at what they're going to do to build our infrastructure and
Mm-hmm.
what we could do to actually, improve the electrical capacity or grid for Anchorage at the same time. These
Mm-hmm.
are these are tremendous loads on electricity. I don't think we're situated here in Anchorage for something like that. I've heard talks of things up, north, but I don't know that they're, from a economic and startup and infrastructure level. I don't think they're ready for that either, unless you get someone like Elon Musk to drop in from outer space and foot the
Which he
bill.
might.
He might, but I don't think that. I think that it's just kind of a hot topic. It kind of got
Yeah.
brought up by the national,
Mm-hmm.
the president over the last year or so, and the talks, and Elon Musk, like I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something with, especially with AI growing, people want to jump on that hot new trend, and I would like to say that Anchorage could be a part of that, but I think we need to look at how do we build our own security before we start to
Mm-hmm.
impact our own grid on something like that.
Yeah. No, that's good. Well, Mr. Flynn, we're getting here close to the end, and I just want to kind of open it up. Are there any questions that I should have asked that I haven't that you would like the audience to hear?
No, I just think that for people's sake, when you're looking at your ballot and deciding what you want Anchorage to look at, I first and foremost would ask you, do you feel like Anchorage has gotten better in the last 3 years? I said earlier in this podcast that, that's one of the biggest reasons I'm running is because I looked at how things were going, and I don't believe we are. I think we're going in the wrong direction. I think we've been steadily declining for over the last decade with the current assembly leadership and majority that have taken over. I think it's time for new input from perhaps some more private sector minded people. Most of, if not all of the assembly majority members on that dais all come from public sector mentality, and public sector tends to, unfortunately, be more inclined to taking more money out of people's pockets through taxes and levies and ballot measures instead of looking at, okay, what are they doing in the private sector and what makes them successful. I've worked in the commercial real estate for almost 25 years now, particularly in the last 15 years. I've worked in the management side on the project management for capital improvements and tenant improvements, and I've done it both in private and public sector. And of course, I feel that fiduciary responsibility, especially with public dollars, that it's not my money, it's the public's money. And so I've worked on over $40 million in capital projects, and I've done every one of them under budget. And with that mindset that, I want to be a good steward for the public dollar, and I want to bring that mentality into the Anchorage Assembly.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, Mr. Flynn, thank you very much for taking the time with us today. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about your campaign?
Well, you can find me at Flynn for Anchorage. That's FLYNN for Anchorage.com. I'm also on all the social media: Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram, I think TikTok, all those things. Some of the things I don't even know about. But yeah, you can look me up. And we can contact me. We have our email, our phone number, everything's on the website. I really do hope that people will engage and vote. We have an election with ballots out, and most of the people I've talked to have received their ballots already. You have until
Mm-hmm.
April 7th. I highly encourage people to vote early. There's drop boxes in my district. There's one at West High School. There's one at Spinard Rec Center, and there's one at Diamond High School, but they're all over. There's one at City Hall, at Lusac Library. I believe public voting, in-person voting begins at City Hall and at Lusac Library starting on the 31st. And the election ends on the 7th. And I like I said earlier, I do encourage people to vote early. Don't wait. There could be a big snowstorm. I talked to someone who said that she was gonna vote when she got back into town on the 7th. I mean, what if right now with TSA, what if your flight's delayed? There's all kinds of things that can get in the way. There's no reason in my mind to wait. Just get your ballot in and vote and make a difference. I think that we have 6 candidates on the ballot. Every district in Anchorage has a great candidate. I encourage people to look them up. I can name them. Downtown is Justin Millette. In Eagle River, it's Donald Hanlon. And West Anchorage, of course, it's me, Brian Flynn. Midtown is Dave Donnelly. East Anchorage is Cody Anderson. And South Anchorage is Bruce Ferguson.
Fantastic. Well, Mr. Flynn, thank you very much for your time, and we'll make sure to get all of that contact information posted in the show notes here today so people can come and find you. And all the best on your election.
Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate the opportunity. Hope to talk soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.